Daniel Larson has been let out of jail as of 1 p.m. Mountain Time, July 21st, 2026. For those unfamiliar, he's a man who slowly took the internet by storm starting all the way back in 2019 until his fated arrest in 2024. You saw with him everything from a silly little presidential campaign both him and his trolls treated with the utmost seriousness to violent outbursts when the safety of his famous girlfriend is put into question by trolls. A girl who in reality never ever had any contact with him. So being the intriguing little fella he is, we'll look at today what exactly this release will entail for Mr. President and take a little look into his past to see what exactly has drawn the masses to him and maybe even why this release may not bode well for the state of Colorado. First, before we get into his release, why don't we go over why exactly Big Man ended up behind bars in the first place. Daniel is a deeply disturbed individual with delusions of grandeur, particularly with being a famous singer-songwriter. He's got a handful of mental health issues, was seemingly neglected in his younger years, and due to that baseline given to him in life and his upbringing, along with having completely unrestricted access to the internet, would culminate in a sort of chaos with the way Daniel would see and interact with the world. People would see the incredibly wild things Daniel would say or do from day to day on TikTok and be captivated in a way by the unpredictability found in his life. Whether it was concerned viewers, people there just for a laugh, or a crowd with darker intentions, the audience was waiting to see what was next for him. It would grow exponentially. In turn, convincing him this singer-songwriter fantasy was coming true as he grew a massive fan base, or what he thought were all adoring fans. Using this musical career delusion, fellas sometimes with good intentions, others with bad, would get a hold of him. And some of the wackiest or darkest moments we'd witness about him would be due in part to manipulation, misinformation fed to him, or pranks pulled onto the guy by these managers. Some notable instances of this would be the nuclear war prank pulled by manager Ox, a darker one being him being convinced to expose himself to thousands of live TikTok viewers in an attempt to audition for adult film. Or one of the worst being in how he went on and on about how he's going to legalize things Nova Online would do with someone under the age of 18. So yeah, despite for sure being a victim himself, Daniel is most definitely not a good person. And there's a laundry list of instances or examples of exactly how Daniel wasn't a sweet, harmless, but funny guy just manipulated on the internet, but was fairly evident from tons of posts made by Larson himself of how much of a bad person he was, with things such as his Pinterest account with various young individuals saved in categories grouped by age that where he alluded to by himself photos he would use for a certain purpose. Then we'd have his stalking and obsession with the younger Grace Vanderwall, a girl who was under 18 for a while during this obsession, who many believe is the source of the singer-songwriter delusion in order to maybe perform with her one day. The Vanderwall family even got into contact with him, by the way, at one point, in order to try to curb the stalking, to no avail. And his aggression towards others paired with his property damaging tendencies, just to name a few of the flaws of his. So during Mr. President's reign over the internet in the early 2020s, he would post videos or clips uploaded by him, getting into altercations or situations out in public, sometimes due to this aggression we talked about, where police would end up being called. Whether it be being thrown out of restaurants or getting kicked out of the airport for loitering, despite many of these interactions being orchestrated by trolls or managers, Daniel would have some very negative interactions with police on multiple occasions, already forming this bad taste in his mouth when it came to them and the government. Then you go ahead and couple that with misinformation sprinkled in here and there from managers or trusted trolls. Daniel would end up making threats to the police, the government, and even the President of the United States of America.
And this message is to the police and the FBI and the sheriff. Don't play around with me, because I am paying my bail.
Bomb you! Bomb you! Bomb you! Bomb you! Kill you! Kill you! Kill you! Call the feds on me, you fucking liar!
So, of course, some of the extraordinary threats he would make time and time again would gain the attention of both the FBI and even the Secret Service, leading to Agent McDougal to try to get into contact with Daniel.
Okay, so Bob just got a call from Special Agent McDougal. Daniel McDougall, and I am in apparently trouble again with the U.S. Secret Service, and he is asking Bob for my exact location right this minute.
Many of Daniel's viewers at the time believed McDougal not to even be a real fella, just some other delusion or lie made up by Daniel, but no, he was very much real, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But the walls began closing in on him as the law began to take what this guy was saying on the internet very seriously, leading up to his eventual arrest, gathering a handful of charges that culminated into him facing possibly 70 years in jail. Now, reading those charges in order, we have count 1. On or about July 3rd, 2023, in the state and district of Colorado, the defendant, Daniel Larson, through the use of an instrument or interstate commerce, and in affecting interstate commerce, willfully made a threat and maliciously conveyed false information, knowing the same to be false, concerning an attempt and alleged attempt being made and to be made unlawfully to damage and destroy a building and other real and personal property by means of an explosive, namely a particular county courthouse in Colorado, all in violation of Title 18. Count 2, skipping through, we've got concerning an attempt and alleged attempt being made and to be made to unlawfully to damage and destroy a building and other real and personal property by means of an explosive, namely a particular nonprofit center in Lakewood, Colorado, in violation of Title 18. Then count 3, on or about August 29th, 2023, in the state and district of Colorado, the defendant, Daniel Larson, made a threat unlawfully to damage and destroy a building and other real and personal property by means of an explosive, namely the White House, all in violation of Title 18. Then count 4 was September 26, 2023, same kind of threat to a government building in Colorado. And also September 26 in 2023, same kind of threat to a particular college campus in Colorado. Then count 6, on or about December 25th, 2023, in the state district of Colorado, the defendant, Daniel Larson, did knowingly transmit in interstate and foreign commerce a communication containing a threat to injure the person of another, namely our particular Federal Bureau of Investigation agent, I believe this was McDougal, all in violation of Title 18. Then count 7 was March 23rd, 2024, where he made a similar threat that he made on the White House to the Federal Bureau of Investigation headquarters. So yeah, quite the list of charges, and despite how silly it is that the United States government was taking this man seriously, all of these charges stacked together could carry an incredibly hefty sentence with them. Now, after roughly 2 years of waiting, on July 21st, 1 p.m. Mountain Time, his long-awaited sentencing would finally arrive, and just 20 short minutes later, at 1:20 p.m. Mountain Time, Daniel would be set to be released. During those 20 minutes, though, according to sources, and I quote, Judge Rodriguez was giving him like a motivational speech about making change and progress when I walked out. The vibe from everyone was that he was a victim and was heels, end quote. Now, this release doesn't come without its conditions, so these would be shortened by Flexburger, but we do have the official document stating all of these. He will have 2 years of supervised release. He must not leave the state of Colorado without getting permission first. His probation officer can visit him at any time and search his residence. His probation officer can search through his phone and any device with internet access and all social media accounts. Probation officer will have passwords and access to all of the above. Must work full-time or be searching for full-time work unless the probation officer excuses him. Must not communicate or interact with anyone engaging in criminal activity or with a past felony. He must participate in mental health treatment and remain medically compliant, and he must not make contact with previously mentioned Agent McDougal. Now, to the dismay of everyone who was hoping that Daniel would start up a new account and start posting all his wild and wacky antics again, I know they're all disappointed in that. This is probably the best possible thing that could have happened to Daniel following his release, was all of these rules he had to follow, particularly the fact that all of his electronics have to be essentially watched 24/7. Because if that weren't the case, if he got back into contact with some managers, if he got back into contact with some of the trolls, I'm sure all sorts of incidents such as the Olive Garden incident would just happen all over again. Daniel is someone incredibly susceptible to misinformation and incredibly gullible, so it would only be a matter of time before the same exact shit that would happen that got him in jail in the first place would happen again. And Colorado is probably a much safer place for the public, at least while the supervision is occurring. I don't have any words for when these 2 years are up, but for now, the streets of Colorado should be safe, along with the kids of Colorado, because You know what kind of things Daniel's also into. What's wild to me, though, is the fact that they're allowing him to have any sort of internet access at all after everything that he got up to and everything that him having that access caused. The restrictions put on that of just having supervised access seems a little lax. I just hope that him and his probation officer follow all of these things to a T, so he and the general public don't get hurt in one of his outbursts. Who knows though, because all it takes is one bad actor to get into contact with him briefly, and it's probably all over with. He's probably going back to jail. Anyways, if you liked what you saw here today, fellas, and you want to see some more, don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button and hype it up. It really does help it out. Otherwise, I hope you guys all have a wonderful day. Later, Grubbas.